Napoleon, and we're going to talk about the peace that comes from Napoleon's defeat. So we have to defeat Napoleon, and we're going to have a peace conference. The peace conference is called the Congress of Vienna. A congress refers to a meeting. It's held in the city of Vienna, Austria, the capital of Austria. So this is the map of the height of Napoleon's power. We want to understand that Napoleon expanded the boundaries of France. Notice all those dark green, that's France itself. Light green, he put his relatives in charge of, so we call them satellite states, meaning he told them what to do and they did it. Purple states are allied with him. At one point, Russia was actually allied with him up to about 1810 or so, until he decides to invade it in 1812. But you can see that he really controls almost all of continental Europe. That's incredible. Now, this is 1812. We know Napoleon invades Russia, which will be the start of his downfall. But we really want to talk about the peace here. So what I want you to see here was Napoleon has erased boundaries and changed leaders. And the light green states are all the satellite states, and the purple states did what he told them to do. But it's mostly the dark green, the light green states we have to worry about here at this peace conference. Now, his enemies are labeled in orange here. We're talking about the English or the British here. We have the Russians, Portugal, I guess. But at the peace conference, we're looking really at Great Britain. We're looking at Russia. Now, Prussia and Austria are labeled purple here, but they will be at the peace conference, and the British, the Prussians, the Russians, and the Austrians work together to defeat Napoleon. Again, the Prussians, it's another word for what becomes modern Germany. I know that's confusing, but that's what it is. So Napoleon was defeated first at the Battle of Nations, and he's exiled to the island of Elba, which would be so lovely to be exiled to a little island off the coast of Italy in the Mediterranean Sea. You can see here from the map. After he abdicates the throne and he's exiled, the people who defeated him, the coalition of states, so the British, the Russians, the Austrians, the Prussians, will put back in power in France the brother, the king they had executed. So his name was Louis XVIII. So they restore the monarchy. That was one of their goals. They put the guy or the family that was in charge prior to Napoleon taking over France, they put him back in charge. So Louis XVI had been beheaded. Louis XVI's son died in jail. This is the brother, Louis XVI. Napoleon, though, is going to escape from the island of Elba on what we call the 100 days. So he's out approximately 100 days. So what has to happen here once Napoleon escapes? He escapes Elba, lands in the southern part of France and marches in, and he is actually welcomed back, and the crowds love him, and the French people love him because he brought such glory to the French state. A coalition of nations that were all meeting at the Congress of Vienna, their troops aren't too far, they weren't completely demobilized, they just come back again to deal with Napoleon. So Napoleon's final defeat is what is something called Waterloo. And you can email me, not text me, email me if you see any movies in your time at home these days about Waterloo. You'll see movies where they talk about Waterloo, or you'll see places called Waterloo. It relates to this battle. So you have a coalition of states, particularly led by the English general, the Duke of Wellington, of course, the Prussian general, Blücher here. It takes his coalition of states to defeat Napoleon after he came back, and he took back power of France. Louis XVIII, by the way, was out. Napoleon was in for these 100 days. The second time he's defeated, Napoleon is sent to a smaller island down off the coast of Africa. This is the southernmost towards the southern tip of Africa, St. Helena. You can see a picture of Napoleon here in his uniform. This is his residence. I have not visited here. I don't know if it's I'm sure it's a bit of a tourist attraction. Here is his tomb. Napoleon's tomb is actually brought back to France in the 1840s, and it's a big tourist attraction and a seventh arrondissement in France today. His legacy, he just brought such glory to the state of France. So once Napoleon's defeated, you have to have this meeting or this peace to deal with the mess Napoleon kind of made in Europe. So we had this meeting at what's called the Congress of Vienna. Now the Congress of Vienna starts meeting in September 1814, and it doesn't finish to June 1815, approximately like a school year, this Congress of Vienna. The host of the meeting is the Austrians because it's held in Vienna, and the leader for the Austrians is this guy, Prince Clemens von Metternich. So I want you to note he's a prince. So prince is the title of nobility, and so he's going to be a conservative-minded leader. We have other leaders here. We're going to look at starting at the upper, like clockwise, we'll look at the British leader. The foreign minister is a Viscount Castlereagh. Now the Brits have a foreign minister, and they have some sort of democratic state at this point, not complete democracy. And he's a Viscount. He was a title of nobility. The French, this is amazing, and this is what we don't see in World War I. The French have a representative there, and this representative is Talleyrand. So Talleyrand, I believe he's a member of the Catholic Church. The Prussians send their king, Frederick William, and the Russians send their czar. So you have a king and you have a czar, and then you have two nobles, a prince and a viscount. Like, these are all members of the noble class of Europe. They're conservative-minded. Excuse me. They don't want to continue the ideals of the French Revolution. They don't want to see their power as noble class to be gone. We have lots of things commemorating this time. So you can see this etching here. What is the point of this meeting? It's going to undo what Napoleon has done. It's going to reduce the size of France. Now, technically, they first reduced it to the boundaries of 1792, but Napoleon escapes for his 100 days, and so they reduce the size of France a little bit further. They don't really lose much land in the big scheme of things, though. And their second goal is to restore the kings that had a job before, and they put them back on the throne. That's a very conservative position. The people that were there, the people that took part in this Congress of Vienna, they truly believed in this diplomacy. They truly believed there was an alternative to conflict. And this will be the prevailing idea for about 100 years, an alternative to conflict. And of course, 100 years after 1815 gets you to the 20th century, and that's your world wars. And those people in the 20th century don't see an alternative to conflict. They just see conflict. We have coins commemorating this time period. We have a couple of key principles you want to kind of keep in mind. They believed in what's called balance of power. No one state should be more powerful than any other state. Legitimacy refers to whoever was the legitimate ruler prior to the French Revolution and the French state taking or conquering territories gets to have that power back. And they want to compensate those who fought, who worked together, those armies that worked together against the French. So there'll be a compensation. As a result, the French will have coalition forces occupying their state for about a short period of time. It's no more than 5 years, and they have to pay an indemnity. And the French are able to pay the 700 million francs here. I don't know how much 700 million francs translates to, but the whole point is there is coalition, and there's an indemnity. But the indemnity is not so overwhelming. The French pay it off within a few years without any difficulty, and then the French are embraced back into world affairs. Changes that are made in Vienna. We have lots of territory that will be changed. Russia's going to be given what was part of Poland, called the Duchy of Warsaw. Prussia's given some territory, which was called Saxony, parts of Poland. The Germanic Confederation is created, which is a loose association of German states. This replaced what Napoleon had put there, which was called the Confederation of the Rhine. It's right, there is no Germany yet. It's right smack in the middle of Europe. And Austria was given territory it had lost, plus additional territory. Because, of course, the Austrians, the Prussians, the Russians, the British, all were the people that worked together for the coalition. Here is a picture of the Central Europe, this Germanic Confederation. We will have buffer states built up around France, neutrality of Switzerland's reinforced, and some land added there. And then this is where the Brits gain. The Brits are going to gain territory in South Africa. Okay, and some other colonies. But they'll be given Cape Colony in South Africa and other parts of Africa and Asia. And the Brits here at this point, the Brits outlawed slavery in 1808, and you see here in 1815 them again urging the end of the slave trade. The Brits also want freedom of navigation for many rivers, and these are the changes then. So I want you to note France's size is really not bad. They don't lose too much territory. They lose a little bit. The state of France is there. You have buffer states created kind of to keep France in where she is. The buffer state is the Netherlands. Today you and I would call that Belgium, the Netherlands. Prussia gains territory next to France, and Prussia gains that territory next to France to kind of check France in again. Switzerland's reaffirmed. And then we looked at this territory, we will look more at this territory called Sardinia Piedmont. They are given some territory in the southeast part of France to kind of, again, check the power of France. You can see Austria gained. Austria is a quite large state. Russia is a huge state, and Poland is off the map. That didn't really have to do with Napoleon, but Prussia, Austria, and Russia saw this opportunity to erase Poland from the map. Don't worry, all you Polish people, because Poland will come back in about 100 years. The Congress of Vienna has a phenomenal legacy. It will ensure peace for about 100 years in Europe. They look for alternatives to conflict. I think it's a remarkable peace treaty. It's one of my favorite things to teach and to study. And it maybe doesn't seem so important here in 1815, but we're going to come back to this peace treaty when we talk about World War I, because we don't do such a good job with World War I.